me to talk about this module that Evelyn and I worked quite hard on over the last couple of years. So basically what I want to focus on is this module, Primary Source Research in the Humanities, Exploring the Cultural Heritage Collections. And this was a module that was introduced with the new Humanities programme, which is about 4 years running by this stage. So the idea of this module was to introduce students to primary sources, so the kinds of materials that are available in special collections and archives, so rare books and manuscripts, writers' papers, historical periodicals, photographs, things that are of kind of cultural significance. And so what we really wanted to do was get students kind of into the special collections and working on them. So when I say we, I'm talking about myself, and I started work on this module when I was Vice Principal for Teaching and Learning. So that's kind of to explain the college perspective that I had. And it was in collaboration with Evelyn Flanagan and the Director of UCD Special Collections. And Evelyn was involved in all aspects and continues to be involved in all aspects of this module, from the initial idea, the design, and the delivery of the module, teaching and assessment, and the continuous review. So Geraldine asked me to look at the background, what we aim to do, how we did it, how it went, the sustainability of the design, and the resources and supports required. So that's the structure of my talk today. So as I mentioned, this module was introduced as part of the new 4-year humanities programme. And this programme was interdisciplinary primarily, so whereas it was an alternative to the BA Arts programme where students choose their own subject combinations. In the humanities programme, first of all, it was a 4-year programme, but students selected their particular pathway at the very beginning, so in first year. So they had a cohort in particular disciplines that they would take through the 4 years of the programme. So we have like English and creative writing, we have English drama, film, and so on. Within this 4-year programme, we had an optional internship module. So we were thinking more about employability in the arts and humanities. So students in their 3rd year have an option to take a semester for an internship. So we wanted to think more explicitly and help the students to think more about the employability skills that they are developing through their programme. And this module was going to do it in a very serious way. And then the third thing in relation to the programme was the compulsory capstone research project. So the dissertation, the final year dissertation that some disciplines had already. In the humanities programme, it was going to be core then for all students. So we really wanted to think about ensuring that our students are adequately prepared for the research project at the end. So we were specifically thinking then about primary source research skills. So the humanities programme was the first context. The second was the Irish survey of student engagement. The results over a couple of years whenever I was VPTL. And the results consistently showed that we needed more opportunities for peer learning. So more opportunities for students to learn from each other through the programme. That was an area that we could develop. So we wanted to, so there were pockets of group project work throughout the programme, but we wanted a module then that they would kind of have group work at its heart. And then the third, coming from special collections and Evelyn wanted more students to come in and use the collections and to build on the existing relationships that we already had with special collections in the library in general in teaching and research. So really it was about getting the students to, as they're early in their programme, to come into special collections, have a sense of what material is there, and hopefully come back to it, particularly as they continued their work on the programme. So our goals then, what we aim to do with this module, well, we wanted to create a humanities module, so a module that stood above particular disciplines and above particular pathways. So a humanities module that would serve multiple different disciplines and pathways. We wanted to ensure that it was sustainable, so that we went with a structure where all the students would take the same, would sit through the same lectures, but they would have pathway specific tutorials. So the idea that because cohort identity was really important, it's something that we don't have so much in the arts, the BA Arts programme, something that we really wanted to develop with humanities. So we wanted them to have an opportunity to sit with other students in their particular group and with their particular disciplinary interests in the tutorials, but then the lectures have those kind of big issues, the big topics that were relevant to all pathways. And then the third goal was around developing transferable skills, employability skills, particularly teamwork and also research skills, as I've mentioned. So in terms of the process, it was from the very beginning a collaboration between the college and the library. So I remember whenever Fionnuala Delan, who was our Associate Dean at the time, and I went to see Evelyn in special collections. So really from the very beginning, it was always that kind of connection across the library and the college. And we wanted to make sure that we had the support within the college, but also outside the college. So because this module was going to be offered as a core on various humanities pathways that I wasn't teaching into, Fionnuala wasn't teaching into, then we wanted to make sure that the pathway coordinators believed in this module, supported this module, and helped in the design and development of the module. And so we had meetings and workshops with those pathway coordinators. Our College of Arts and Humanities office was really great in terms of timetabling. These things are always incredibly complex. And then we wanted, because it was a multidisciplinary module, we wanted to draw upon expertise across the college and different schools and subjects. And we also talked a lot. Geraldine actually sat in one of the first meetings that we had. And we also talked to careers as well, to kind of, particularly in terms of what we needed to do in developing teamwork skills. And obviously we had an idea in terms of our disciplines, but we wanted to think about those transferable teamwork skills as well. And then we got, the module was, we had about a year to plan. It was, whenever we were planning it, we didn't really have students in the humanities programme. So actually students weren't involved in the design of the module, but they've been incredibly involved in the development over the last number of years. So I want to focus, in terms of how we did it, I want to focus on these issues. First of all, the hands-on work with primary sources. Then I want to think a little bit about how we structured the module and the role of assessment, how we developed group work skills on the module, and then the importance of rubrics and templates, which is something which has become very, very important to me over the last couple of years. So here's a photograph from special collections from maybe 6 weeks ago. And you can see the students in their various groups working with different primary sources that are set up around the special collections and reading room. So thanks very much to Evelyn for that photograph. In the module of 11-12 weeks, we had 4 visits to special collections. It was really, really important for us to get the students actually in the room. Students were then introduced, so the visits to special collections were carefully staged. So students were introduced to a wide range of primary sources, so kind of show and tell in the early stages, developing into more in-depth work in the later stages of the module. And we designed worksheets to structure their engagement with sources. So the idea was that the students would move around table to table and engage with, you know, a rare book from the 16th century or some writers' archives from the early 21st century and so on. We also give them training in using the library catalogue to find material in special collections, because they're used to being trained in using OneSearch, but actually what we need is the library catalogue to identify specific material. And then we train them in how to interpret the entries in the catalogue. We really encourage students to explore the catalogue and pursue their interests, because they were coming, you know, for the English creative writing students came with particular interest in kind of the writing process and so on, were drawn towards writers' papers, whereas the classics English history group, for example, were really keen on looking at the more historical rare books and so on. So we really wanted for the module to showcase that the range, the diversity, the richness of the collections. And then we had an individualist, so they were working on groups within special collections, but we also had a little individual assignment that necessitated an independent visit to special collections. So basically they had to find an item using the library catalogue, find the call number, then order it, make an appointment in special collections and go in and then answer some questions on it. And so it was about kind of developing confidence. And that was the most important thing. Whenever our students started, none of them had been to special collections, and that wasn't just because of COVID. It was because there just hadn't been that kind of history of doing so. Whereas by the end of the semester, you know, they'd been 5-6 times or more. So in terms of the module structure and assessment, the first half, we really wanted to organise the module. So on the first half of the module, we were developing breadth of knowledge. So helping students identify, select, interpret and use a wide range of primary sources. And the assessment then for the end of the first half was a group glossary. So we assigned a number of terms, and they also selected some terms themselves, key terms relating to primary sources, special collections and so on. So they provided a definition, and the key thing was that they also selected examples from special collections to illustrate that. So it's kind of multimedia glossary, and then the individual report I've mentioned already. So it's about knowledge acquisition, mostly the first half of the semester, and application of that knowledge. In the second half of the semester then, we were prioritising depth of engagement. So at that point we assigned a particular item from special collection that was relevant to their humanities pathway. We also allowed a little bit of flexibility so that if students had a particular item they wanted to work on, and we would facilitate that, or if we give them an item that they really hated, then they could change it. But basically the second half of the module, they worked towards a group exhibition based on that primary source, and they'd already looked at exhibitions and so on, and had an idea of what was expected. And then at the end of the process, they do a very short critical reflection, but I'll talk about that, basically about their experiences of working in groups and working with primary sources. So as I said, developing groups work skills, it was a learning outcome of the module, and it was something that we really wanted to build in throughout the entire module. I've had a lot of experience with group work and facilitating group work modules with up to 500 first year students, and so I've experienced all the difficulties, all the challenges, but also the rewards of group work. So I really wanted to make sure with Evelyn that we were supporting the students in developing those group work skills. So we did it in these kinds of ways. So an about you form before the semester starts, which includes information or a question about their feelings about working in groups and their main concerns. You know, so how happy are you with working in groups, or and what are your main concerns about working in groups? So it just meant that I had a good sense of the kind of baggage that the students were bringing to the module. And what was really interesting actually at the last semester, the students overwhelmingly were excited about coming and doing group work. And I think that was just, you know, this is a cohort who had been learning remotely for the previous year, and they were just delighted to get back onto campus. This semester it was more what I expected, and it was quite mixed. Some students very excited about doing group work, and some a little bit more anxious. And then, so that's the first thing. Then in the first lecture, I spent a good bit of time explaining the purpose of group work within the module. So really justifying it, saying why it's important in terms of both the module specific skills that they're developing, but also the transferable skills. And I talk about employability and the internship and so on. The first tutorial is devoted entirely to group work, so I get them into groups, and then we do a series of activities. So they brainstorm the common challenges in group work first of all, so they get to spew out all the kind of concerns that they have, and it's good to give space to air those worries. And then we select the most urgent challenges, and the groups think about ways of mitigating these challenges, and then they capture their ideas on Padlet, and that's shared with everyone. So we've got a series of strategies that the groups themselves have created. Then the groups agree ground rules, and they're posted up on Brightspace, and I read them and give some feedback both individually and to the whole cohort. And then groups choose a name to replace the number that I've assigned them, and sometimes they take a group photo. That was an idea that I got from a colleague in social sciences, which I really loved, and it's playful, an opportunity for them to kind of present themselves in a particular way. So that's in terms of preparation, and then throughout the module there's lots of space for practice and reflection. So there's group work in every tutorial, and then at the end of each group project they complete this self and peer evaluation form where they score themselves on against a range of criteria, and also score their colleagues. So at the end of the first project, I just have a look at it, and it's a great way for me to identify any problems and intervene at that stage if I need to, or support the students in addressing those problems. They do the same form again at the end of the second project, and I tell them that this is more considered in part of the assessment. So this is an opportunity where if a student isn't participating, then I can intervene, look for evidence of participation and so on. It's really for reassuring the students. You know, I rarely have to intervene actually. Most groups work fine together and distribute the work fairly. You know, they're not always happy about it, and some students might just kind of wait until the very end to do what they need to do, but it generally kind of comes together. But the students do like the reassurance that that exists and that there's a visibility for their experiences. And then I've mentioned already the critical reflection that they do. So we use Gibbs's reflective cycle, and they just really pick a critical incident, something which was important for their learning from the experience of group work, and then they write a kind of 300-400 word reflection on that, sort of what happened, how they overcame it, and what they would do differently if the opportunity arose again. And then
just one minute.
Okay, no problem, Geraldine. So the thing then I just want to finish up with is rubrics and then templates. Were incredibly important because they're doing new and unfamiliar types of assignments. This was an opportunity for them to kind of have a good understanding of what was expected of them, develop their assessment literacy, and also evaluate their work in progress against what was here. And just to say a couple of things then quickly, how it went. The continuous review, always getting feedback from students in short polls or minute papers, allowed us to tweak the module as we went along. The COVID experiences, it was possible using the digital library. We were able to continue with the module using online resources, but it definitely meant that we prioritize the in-person learning. This module is best done whenever the students can touch and smell and feel the material. The interdisciplinary aspect has been challenging for some pathways. They've questioned the relevance, but actually that's been a great opportunity to really understand more about that particular pathway and how primary sources fit within that. So I've been good at kind of talking to the pathway coordinators. And then in terms of the impact, students have secured internship using evidence that they've built through this module. Students have developed interest in libraries and archives and are pursuing careers there. The dissertation aspect, I think, is something that we will have to explore a little bit more. And then I know the slides are going to be distributed afterwards, so I think these are all pretty self-explanatory. So I'll maybe just finish there in terms of the sustainability of the design.
Great.
That's okay, Geraldine?
That's great, yeah, because maybe someone we might ask even about that, because we